Welcome to Time of Death. This video is for informational purposes and in no way meant to glorify or condone violence. In today's video, we'll be discussing the murder of Marco Antonio Juarez Jr. Juarez died on Saturday, April 22, 2006, after being shot in the 14,200 block of Calvert Street in Van Nuys, according to LA County coroner records. Ramiro Munoz was subsequently arrested and charged with the murder. The following is the evidence at trial. On the evening of April 21, 2006, victim Marco Juarez, P. Gomez, and his cousin K. Gomez were planning to drive from the San Fernando Valley to Las Vegas for a family gathering. They planned to make the trip in the victim's black Honda Accord. The victim drove the car, while P. Gomez sat in the front passenger seat and K. Gomez sat in the back seat. Prior to leaving town, they stopped for gas and then planned to stop to buy snacks. At about 8:30 p.m., they proceeded in the Honda on Calvert Street in Van Nuys towards a food vendor truck parked on Calvert midway between the cross streets of Hazeltine and Tyrone. None of the three were gang members. Defendant, also known as Criminal, a member of the Barrio Van Nuys criminal street gang, three other Barrio Van Nuys gang members, and Clemente Rodriguez, who was not a gang member, were hanging out near the food vendor truck when the victim drove up in the Honda. Pete Gomez got out of the car and approached the vendor truck intending to buy some chips. The victim and K. Gomez stayed in the car. According to Rodriguez, while P. Gomez stood at the food truck, defendant and another gang member known as Merck approached the car. They asked the victim and K. Gomez what neighborhood they were from and yelled out Barrio Van Nuys. The victim appeared frightened and began to drive down the street away from the food truck towards Hazeltine. Defendant and Merck began chasing the car on foot. While the exchange between defendant and the victim occurred, Rodriguez approached P. Gomez, who was standing at the food truck waiting to make a purchase. Rodriguez testified he recognized P. Gomez as a distant relative. Rodriguez asked P. Gomez to identify the driver. P. Gomez told Rodriguez that the victim was his cousin and was not a gang member. Rodriguez stated that after he spoke to P. Gomez, he ran towards the defendant to tell him to stop, not to shoot because the victim was not a gang member. By this time, the victim had turned his car around and began to drive back towards the food truck to pick up P. Gomez. According to Rodriguez, by the time he reached defendant had pulled out a revolver and fired 2 shots at the car through the passenger side window. The victim was fatally wounded by the shots. He was struck twice, once in the neck and once in the head. After the shooting, the victim's car proceeded out of control on Calvert Street towards Tyrone and eventually crashed into another vehicle. Rodriguez stated that after defendant shot into the car, both he and defendant ran to defendant's nearby apartment. Defendant asked Rodriguez to urinate on his hands to remove any evidence that defendant had recently fired a gun. Rodriguez complied. They both took showers and then went out for the rest of the evening. Defendant was arrested and charged with 1 count of murder and a 2nd count of shooting at an occupied motor vehicle. The information further alleged as to both charges that defendant personally used and intentionally discharged a firearm which caused great bodily injury or death, and that the crimes were committed for the benefit of a criminal street gang. Rodriguez testified under a grant of immunity. According to Rodriguez, earlier in the day, while riding in a car around the neighborhood, defendant, Rodriguez, and several others had a road rage encounter with another car. Rodriguez stated that they believed the other car in the incident was the victim's Honda. Following the trial, the jury convicted defendant on both counts and found all the special allegations true. Defendant, who was 15 years old at the time of the murder, was sentenced to 50 years to life in prison. Marco Antonio Juarez Jr. was 19 years old at the time of death.